Okay. Right. Okay. Just go with this. Working. We gotta work everything. Okay, we're done. We're done. I think we're ready to go. Okay. Hi, Tzvi. Right. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. I'm sure it's not the easiest thing to come out. It's already past Rosh Chodesh. So if we're ready past Rosh Chodesh and we're ready at the point where people are really starting to worry about Pesach, it's not just, oh God, Purim's coming and Pesach. You know, once Purim's passed, we all know Pesach is coming in the back of our minds. But once it's been Rosh Chodesh Nisan, it's beyond, we all know Pesach is coming. Pesach is coming. You know, it's really on its way. It's Nisan already. So now, Pesach seems to be a difficult time to feel cherus. A lot of people find it difficult to feel the feeling of freedom over Pesach. And I think specifically women struggle with this, which is why I wanted to speak about this tonight. Let's put it this way. Let's try without being too negative and without being too cynical. Sorry. Without being too negative, without being too cynical, let's try to still get an idea and understanding of why this is so difficult. I think most of you know why it's difficult anyway. Try to put it all together. You have your house and your kids, if you have any kids, and if you don't have any kids, you have a husband, that are absolutely hammering your house a whole year round. There's stuff lying around, there's stuff all over the place, it's a mess, you know, and it's just like shoveling whilst it's snowing. It never, ever ends. And you're constantly just busy trying to get it done. And finally, the kids go to sleep at night. Everyone's out. You manage to clean up the house only to wake up next morning back to the same mess. And now what we turn around is we say, how about we are now going to go ahead and we're going to clean the entire house. But not only are we going to clean the entire house, we're going to make sure that the house is free of any chametz whatsoever. So you're now climbing on top of things and you're scrubbing and you're doing all sorts of things. And it really is very, very difficult. And you spend like an entire month just going berserk over your entire house, revamping your entire kitchen, starting all over again. So you got to start again. New salt and new pepper and new spices. And you can't have anything that you had before. So every last little thing you have to buy again. We all know that the kosher Pesach version is not as good as the regular version because they're always using, I don't know what they're using or how they make it inferior, but they just do. Everything is not as good kosher Pesach. The only thing that works is matzahs, but other beyond matzahs, nothing else is good. So you got to cook all this stuff. You got to clean the entire house. Then, a week before Pesach, all the kids get let out of school. Just when you spend 3 weeks on cleaning up the entire house and making sure the whole place looks good, you get to start all over again. Now you have to find a place. You know, some people have ketanaz and they have all these groups and they're sending your kids out. You're trying everything desperately just to make sure that you can get the house clean. And finally, come the night of the Seder, you've slogged for an entire month. And you finally sit down and the table is set and who knows how many people are around your table because your in-laws have decided to come, or you have to invite your siblings, or you have to invite, even worse, your husband's siblings, and you never like this brother-in-law, and he always, by the time the second Chad Gadya, by the time he gets to Chad Gadya, he's already rolling on the floor after 4 cups of wine. It's just been a difficult, difficult evening. And you're sitting there and you think to yourself, this is Chag HaCherus. This is how freedom feels. And I just wonder how many people turn around and say, that's not really my ideal feeling of freedom. You know, if you want to say Yom Tov, you want to speak about Pesach, you want to speak about freedom, you know, your husband should have to buy you a ticket and you go off to Aruba somewhere for a week, or you find some kind of private island, just you and him, leave the kids behind, have your mother-in-law or your brothers-in-law or somebody watch them, or your sisters-in-law, and just you and your husband, you take her for an entire week, or if you're not that into it, maybe you go with a good friend, you go for a week, you spend a week there, you come back, Cherus. That feels like freedom. But to scrub the entire house from top to bottom and to have to cook everything from anew and then to have to serve so many people for 8 days, they're all home and you just, there's nothing to eat and you're making these Pesach cakes and it doesn't fill anybody and everybody's having these chocolate flavored omelets again and again because there's 12 eggs, a bit of chocolate and then, and a bit of, if you use some potato starch and that's it. And the kids keep on saying, have some more cake. I've had 4 pieces already. I'm still hungry. Have an apple. I've had 16 apples already. What else can we eat? There's nothing left to eat, and everyone's going crazy because there's nothing to eat. People got it. Just so how do we feel chayrus? How can you go about feeling a feeling of freedom on Pesach? And I think the answer to that question, and the reason people feel chayrus is so difficult to achieve, specifically come Pesach time, this feeling of freedom is so difficult to achieve because we see freedom as a physical feeling. We see freedom as something that comes together with a feeling of relaxation, maybe a feeling of lack of obligation. You put all that together and you look at freedom in that way and you say to yourself, if freedom means I'm on holiday and my kids are taken care of and I've gone away with my husband and I got no mobile phones and nobody can contact us and for 1 week I'm out of everything. If that's what your freedom looks like, then you're right. Then you're going to really struggle to feel freedom on Pesach because that's not what your freedom is. That's not how you're going to feel it. Pesach is the opposite. And so what we need to do is we need to change our mindset and we need to change our definition of how we describe freedom and what we understand as freedom. And only with that can we then come into Pesach and say, I truly feel free. But before we do that, we're going to have a very hard time. So what's real chayrus? What is this freedom all about? And I think I'd like to make 2 points over here about chayrus, about freedom, and to understand that freedom. And these are the following 2 points. Number 1, and this is the more difficult point, but then we can get to point 2, which I think is easier and which is a little bit more palatable. The first point is, we see in Pirkei Avos in the 6th parak, the Torah says, Chorus ala luchos, it is carved out on the luchos, al tikre chorus ala cherus. Don't call it chorus, carved out, but cherus, meaning freedom. And what we're trying to say over here is, and the Pirkei Avos, the Mishnah says it over there, Ein lecha ben chorin ela misha oiseh b'Torah, that the true way to freedom is by keeping the Torah. What does that mean? That means if we are in the clause of anything else, if something else is dictating to us what to do, i.e. our bodies, and we are not in control of ourselves, then we might think we're free, but in truth we're not free. But if we have the ability to turn around and to say, I choose what I want to do, and I'm choosing to do what the Torah tells me to do, even though it is contrary to everything that my physicality tells me is actually very comfortable for me, I can still choose to do that. That's a true chayrus. That's a freedom. So the example is that many people give, and it's very true. You go to a shop, and you see people, and they walk through the shop, and then they get to the checkout. And what is by the checkout? Whether you stand in Tesco, whether you'll stand in Sainsbury's, wherever you're going to go, you'll find the same items by the checkout counter. And they are chocolates, gum, and there used to be cigarettes, but now the cigarettes have to be behind the cashier. But you got chocolates, you have gum, you have things like that. Why? Because people come and they're standing at the checkout and they're already looking around and they're waiting for the person in front of them to do it, to whatever they have to do. Fancy one of those. And there goes. It's the best place to put the chocolate, the best place to put the gum. Because people will always instinctively grab at these items and put them down and try to keep them for themselves. However, imagine now you take a Jewish child and you go to these shops and you're ready to check out and your son says to you or your daughter says to you, Mommy, can I have a chocolate? And you say, no, not today. Can I have a chocolate? No, not today. But I want a chocolate. It's not kosher. Oh, okay. And that's the end of the conversation. I would hope so, in most cases, right? That's the end of the conversation. Whereas the person next to you is still arguing with their child. So much so, there's the famous story that they once saw a black man in a supermarket and yelling at his kid, "That's not kosher." He goes, "Well, what are you doing? Like, are you Jewish?" He goes, "No, but I see all the Jewish people saying it's not kosher." And the kids stop moaning at them. So I tried it also. You can try. But it's an amazing thing that our children, even at that young age, yes, they want to have chocolate, but if they realize that chocolate is not kosher, they're not going to moan about it anymore because there's no kosher chocolate around. If there's kosher chocolate around, they'll try to get the kosher one. But if there's none around, they say, "Oh, there's nothing kosher here. There's no kosher chocolate." Tough. That is cherus. That is a feeling of freedom that we can give our children. That they are in charge. If something's not kosher, no matter how good it looks and no matter how much I want it, it's off the radar. On the one hand, it might be difficult, but there's a freedom in that. There's a feeling of I control myself. I am in control. So that's one way of looking at cherus and looking at freedom in a perspective of ruchnius as opposed to gashmius. But I'd like to look at it from another perspective. And this way of looking at freedom stems, we'll start with the following and work our way through it. You look in the Aseret Adibros, you look in the Ten Commandments, and you'll find over there, the first one of the Aseret Adibros says the following. Anochi Hashem leikecha, I am Hashem, asher yitzisicha me'eretz Mitzrayim, that took you out of Mitzrayim, le'yilecha Elohim Hachem Aponai, can have different gods. And all the Mepharshim ask the question, I am Hashem, your God that took you out of Mitzrayim. Couldn't we have given a better example? The best example of Kodesh Baruch Hu to say about himself is not that took you out of Mitzrayim. He says, I am Hashem, your God that created heaven and earth. That's even more impressive than taking us out of Egypt. Taking us out of Egypt is he created a teva and then he was able to change that. But there was nothing. We can't even imagine. What does it mean there is nothing? There was nothingness. Now Kodesh Baruch Hu created, Yesh Me'ayin, created this entire world. That's an amazing thing. So why is HaKadosh Baruch Hu referring in the first one of the Aseret HaDibros to the fact that he took us out of Mitzrayim when he could really refer to the fact that he created the world? And most Mepharshim take this approach, and I'd like to give this approach together with a few other bits and pieces. And that is, when you talk about Yetzias Mitzrayim, you're talking about coming out of Egypt, it is something that we saw. When you talk about there was nobody there that had left Mitzrayim that could actually identify with the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had created the world. Nobody was there. Nobody was alive at the time. Nobody was around when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. But now we say, and then they look around and they go, "Oh, wait a minute. That just happened 2 months ago. I was there. I saw that." So it becomes something live and tangible. It becomes something that they can see. It becomes something that they can feel. And it becomes something that they can actually relate to. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give Klal Yisrael something that they could relate to within these Aseret HaDibros. And it gives us an understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this goes back to a very famous Ramban. It gives us an understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in 3 areas. When you speak about Yetzias Mitzrayim and you speak about the whole Exodus, it gives you an understanding in 3 areas. And the Ramban says this in the end of Parshas Bo, in a very, very famous and a very, very yesodistic Ramban. The Ramban says the following. He says, in the olden days, there were 3 types of non-believers, if you would call it that. So there were the people that said, they were the total atheists. They said the world is a kadmon. The world was, is, and always will be. It always existed. There is nothing else other than this world. And therefore, this is all you have. What you see is what you get. That was the first type of person. Then there were people that said, no, I believe that Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world. I believe that God created the world. But there is another part to it, is that even though he created the world, but today, he doesn't know what's going on over here. He is so high up, God is in the heavens, and we're down here, and so therefore, God has no shaykhs. God can't really connect with us. That's the second format. And the third type of person that doesn't believe or didn't believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what's going on over here. But once he created the world, it was like he let go of the arrow. It's now flying, he can't bring it back, he can't change the direction, can't do anything in this world. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, again, the 3 things is either HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't create the world, he created the world but doesn't know what's going on, or he knows what's going on but cannot change anything in this world. And what we're trying to do over here, what Yetzias Mitzrayim specifically did for the Jewish people, is negate those three forms of belief. How so? And you see in the Makkos, he goes into it a little bit more, the Ramban. If you look through it, the Ramban goes through it, that the Makkos were there to prove three things. One, that there's a God. Because any time you see a departure from the norm, a departure, you say to yourself, this is science. This is the way things work. This is what I would expect. And suddenly the opposite happens. Water doesn't turn into blood. It just doesn't. Not out of nowhere. You might be able to put something in it to change the color, but for it to change physically from being water to being blood, that doesn't happen. You don't have fire and water mixing together and borrow. That's not natural. You either have fire or you have water, but you can't have the two of them together. Makas B'charis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be able to kill all of the firstborns in 1 second, every single one of them, knowing who's who and who's what. So we have within Yitzias Mitzrayim and within the Makkos, we have HaKadosh Baruch Hu again and again showing the fact that He knows exactly who's where, what's what, that He's able to interfere and intervene in our lives here in this world, and He's got any koyach that He wants to. And that is the amazing koyach of Yitzias Mitzrayim. And that is why the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, not Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, that created the world, but I am Hashem your God that took you out of Mitzrayim. And with taking you out of Mitzrayim, He's now set this stage in that we understand all of these facts about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That there's Hashem, that He knows what's going on, and that He's got full control over what happens in our world. And then the Ramban continues and he says, therefore, you have so many mitzvahs that have to do Zeichel Yitzias Mitzrayim. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I'm not going to in every generation make another miracle. People often say, if God made a miracle right now, I would believe. But since God doesn't make a miracle, I'm not going to believe. I say that again and again. People say, if I saw it, then... The interesting thing is that, first of all, it's not true. There are a few stories to prove that. I'll tell you the story, and then I'll tell you what I've heard from somebody else. The story, a famous story that they tell is about a taxi driver that was giving a lift to Rav Chatzkel Levenstein. Rav Chatzkel Levenstein, the mashgiach of Ponevezh Yeshiva, was being given a lift by a taxi driver, and this fellow says, Harav, ani yodeh sheyesh Elokim. I know there's Hashem. He goes, really? How'd you know? He says, we all went after the army. We all went. Went touring. They went to Africa, they went to the jungle, who knows where they went. He says, and one morning we wake up, and suddenly Boaz starts to scream. And Boaz is screaming, or say, Boaz, what happened? And there's a boa constrictor that's wrapping itself around Boaz. And we're trying to wrestle this snake off of Boaz. It's just not going. The Kodesh Baruch Hu created these animals, they're very, very strong animals, and he's wrapping himself tighter and tighter, and he's squeezing the life out of this Boaz. And Boaz is going blue and he's going red in his face, and we don't know what to do. And we're trying, we can't shoot it. And finally we say, Boaz, Tagit Shema Yisrael. He says Shema Yisrael. He says Shema Yisrael, Hashem Echad, Hashem Echad. He says it, and the boa constrictor unravels itself and slithers away. He says, we were all just amazed by that. He says, Rabbi, Boaz today is a frum Jew. He wears a yarmulke, he wears tzitzis, he learns half a day in Kol. Boaz today is an amazing frum Jew. So the Rav Chatzkel looks at the taxi driver and goes, what about you? He goes, the snake didn't come around me. Right? But he watched with his own eyes. He watched a miracle in front of his own eyes, and that didn't change anything. Didn't change the person. And I remember even when I was teaching in Whitefield, this fellow said to me, we once had the discussion, and a guy said to me, you know what? I believe, and I think it is true, I believe that even if HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to people nowadays and said, I want you to keep the mitzvahs, and plenty of people turn around and goes, well, don't really fancy that. Maybe if there was serious punishment, and you could see the punishment, you do an avera, there's an immediate punishment, you did a mitzvah, you got an immediate reward, people would start getting it. But just the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows himself to us, that might not do it. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Ramban tells us, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu therefore says we have to go ahead and we have to make reminders, constant reminders, so that we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu took out Mitzrayim and has those powers that we mentioned before. So therefore he says that he gives us kares v'achilas chometz. You see, can you imagine? A whole year round, there's no food that you could eat basically that would give you as stringent a punishment as kares. Suddenly come Pesach, you eat one little kezayis of chometz, kares. So how does that make sense? Kares is reserved for something that's really, really stringent. For something that's really, really big, this doesn't sound so big. The answer is Yitzias Mitzrayim, because it's such a yisoid in our emunah. It's such a mainstay of everything that we believe. We have to realize how important it is. And he continues on and he says that's the same reason by Yerah, by much you can't even see. And he speaks about mezuzah and tefillin, all the different reminders that we have. Kadosh Baruch Hu gives us constant reminders to say, I took you out of Egypt. And therefore that gives us the feeling of HaKadosh Baruch Hu being in charge. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu giving us that emunah. And then there's the famous paragraph the Ramban writes. From the great miracles, Adam Moide ben Nisim HaNistarim, Shem Yisrael HaKadosh Kula. From these great miracles, then a person realizes all the small miracles. She'ein la'adam chelek b'Toras Moshe Rabbeinu. A person will not have a part in Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah. Achinamin b'chol dvareinu mikreinu shekulam nisim. Until we believe that every single thing that happens to us is a miracle. Ein b'hem teva u'minhaga shel olam. There is no such thing as nature. Nature is God's will that's repetitive, basically. So God wants the sun to come up every morning, so it comes up. God wants the sun to come down every evening, it comes down. That's also a miracle. It's just because it happens every day, we call that nature. But the Ramban says there's no such thing really as nature. Nature is not what we think it is. Nature is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will on a constant basis. And when he wants to, he can change that will. And when we realize that, then we realize HaKadosh Baruch Hu's in charge. We get a different feel of everything. And that's the important point when I want to speak about freedom. When you realize HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge, that gives you a feeling of freedom. Because otherwise, the Chovos HaLevavos speaks about this a lot, the other Sifrei Musa, when you speak about bitachon, when you speak about emunah, when you speak about freedom, it all has to do with that feeling that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, being the one in charge, has the ability and does move all the pieces in my life. And no matter what I do or what I want to do, in the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will is going to happen anyway. He's in charge, what he wants, and therefore if I just leave it up to him, there's a feeling of freedom. You know, I was flying. Went to New York and back. Flying is a great thing. You get on the plane, and you sit down in your seat, and you pull out your book, or you pull out your MP3 player, or, you know, some people are watching their films on an iPad because the 50 or 60 films that they provide for you on that little screen in front of you are not good enough. You have to bring your own movie, and people are sitting and they're doing their own thing, and you just mind your own business, and suddenly 6-7 hours later, they say, okay, we're landing in New York. Nobody thinks at all about the pilot, where he's going, how he's going. It's almost annoying. The pilot comes on. We're going to take it up to 35,000 feet. Then we're going to turn left at Greenland. We're going to go... Yeah, I don't care. I really don't care which way you're going to take us to New York. Just get me there. Yeah? You want to go north, east, west, south. Make sure it takes between 6 and 7 or 7.5 hours. Make sure we take off safely. Make sure we land safely. What happens in the middle is irrelevant. It's like that feeling of bitachon that you have. You trust the pilot. Hey, you just take care of this. You do it. We'll just be entertained by the stewardesses and by whatever else we have over here. That's a similar feeling. Really, HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs everything. He's like the pilot of the world. And so you get on the flight, and you say, okay, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, wherever you take me, that's where you're going to take me. And you should come down. You can feel free. Because if you have that emunah, which is part of what Pesach is supposed to bring for us, if you have that belief that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu does with every single person what he wants, we have to do our bit. You do your shtadlus, but in the end of the day, whatever Hashem wants to happen, that's what's going to happen. There's a feeling of freedom. It's a feeling like, you know, nothing's going to happen. Whatever happens, Hashem wants it to happen anyway. There's this story, I've told this story, I don't think I've told it here, I've told it to other people a few times, and it's not sort of something that I'm proud of, but what happened after your wedding, right? I came home from Ben and Batsheva's wedding. We got a lift home, and then As I walked into the house, it was about 11:45 at night, and as I walked into the house, I got a phone call from somebody. And this person tells me, my mother's just passed away, and we're making Levaya tomorrow, can you come down and do the Levaya? I said, well, I'm in London, but I can try to make my way. He said, okay, good. We want to set it for 1 o'clock. So I was like, 1 o'clock? 1 o'clock doesn't really suit me. Didn't really want it 1 o'clock because I'd taken my son with me to London. This was his graduation present. He was going away. I was taking him to London. We were going to spend the day in London. We were going to take a train back. So I took him. He came to your wedding. Then we looked around London a little bit. And then afterwards we were going to do a day trip to London. And then we were going to take the train back to Manchester. And suddenly, if I need to be in Manchester at 1 o'clock, or I need to be at this Levaya at 1 o'clock, really what it means is I need to leave London almost 9:30, 10 o'clock. By 10 o'clock you have to leave because you have to get there, you have to take a taxi, you have to speak to the family still. By the time you get everything done for 1 o'clock, that's what's going to be. I'm thinking to myself, it's now 11:45 at night, and then my son's sleeping and he's happy. But I've come here, and I didn't want that my work should have to affect my son's experience. I didn't think it was fair. I didn't think it was fair that he should have to lose out on his entire trip just because somebody had passed away. So I said to the family, do you mind, can we do it a little bit later? And they said, well, I was speaking to the wrong person. I was speaking to the lady who had lost her mother, so it wasn't really the right person to be speaking to. But I came off the phone and I called her husband and I called and I spent the next hour on the phone. Between 12 and 1 o'clock, I was calling this one, calling back, deciding, can we do it? Can we manage? Will it work? Will it not work? The whole thing back and forth. And then I guess 1 o'clock I realized, there's no point. We're just going to go back and forth anyway. I went to sleep. Woke up the next day, went to davening, did whatever I had to do. We had breakfast, and then came the moment of truth, 9 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock, I had to figure out what was going to happen now. Am I going back, or am I not going back? And so I call up Goldfines, who's the undertakers here. They deal with the Levias. And they say, oh, Rabbi, we have 2 or 3 Levias on today anyway. The earliest we can do it is 4:30, 4:30. And so I said to myself afterwards, look at that. You spent an entire hour, or an hour and 15 minutes, from 11:45 at night till 1 o'clock in the morning, worrying what's going to be. Are you going to be able to say? You're not going to be able to say. You called this one, you called that one. You called back, you send a text message, you send an email, you're trying to figure out how to do it. How can I get this out? If you had waited till the next morning, it would have all been sorted out for you anyway. Because there were so many things that happened before then that were going to take place. Whether I had, so if I had gone to sleep, woken up the next morning, it would have had the same outcome. But the only difference would have been, I wouldn't have spent an hour and 15 minutes worrying. That's all. All that worry, what was going to happen was going to happen whether you like it or not. So you make one phone call, you see, can I not? Okay, time to go to sleep. It's not up to you anyway. That's a feeling of freedom that bitachon or emunah gives you, or the lack of feeling of freedom that missing it gives you, because you worry what's going to be, and you think you'll be able to change anything, and you think I will be able to make all this different, and you try and you wiggle and you do this and you do that, and in the end of the day, what Hashem wants to happen will happen anyway. And that's one point. But the other point, which is also a beautiful story I once read, and Rav Nachman Zeltzer has it in his book about teachers. There were a group of class of kids that were discussing which one's their favorite teacher, and they all decided Mrs. whatever, call her Mrs. Goldberg. Mrs. Goldberg's our favorite teacher. And they all said Mrs. Goldberg our favorite teacher, and this girl really felt very close to Mrs. Goldberg. And then at one point or another, she heard this thing that really turned things upside down. She heard that Mrs. Goldberg had actually lost a grandchild. And not only did Mrs. Goldberg lose a grandchild, they were in a boating accident together, so that Mrs. Goldberg had taken some of her grandchildren boating, and the boat capsized, and the granddaughter got stuck underneath the boat, and she tried to get her out, and then by the time she got her out, and then they called Hatzalah, and they couldn't save this poor child, and this child died right in front of her own grandmother. And what a day that was meant to have been such a happy day, a day of going out, the granddaughter to go with the grandmother turned into this tragedy. And this girl said to herself, I don't understand. Mrs. Goldberg is the happiest person that I know. How does that make sense? How can Mrs. Goldberg be the happiest teacher that I have? The one that's always smiling. The one that's always happy when this has happened to her. I don't believe it's true. And then one day it was just her and this Mrs. Goldberg in a room, and she couldn't stop herself. And she looked at her teacher and she goes, Mrs. Goldberg, is it true? She goes, is what true? You know. She says, yeah, it's true. She goes, but I don't understand. So how is it possible? You are sort of the smiliest teacher that we have. You seem to be the happiest teacher that we have. And it's not put on. I can feel that it's real happiness. It's true happiness. It's not something that you're putting on. How can you do it? And she says, I realized, yes, there was sadness. And for a long time, I was very, very sad. And for a long time, I couldn't get over this feeling of sadness. And then at one point or another, I realized that my granddaughter wouldn't want me to be sad. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu had planned this. Why, how, when, where? I don't know. But it's not going to change. And I just got to learn to let go and let Hashem run the world. Let God be in charge of this world. And if I let Him run the world and realize He's in charge of everything anyway, that gave me the feeling that I was able to cope with everything. Because Hashem knows what He's doing. God knows what He's doing. He knows what's right. He knows what's wrong. And He's going to keep us in the right way. And I was able to overcome my sadness and my emotion and my feelings of hurt because I realized Hashem is really in charge. And I think that is the true cherus of Pesach. You want to talk about freedom on Pesach? The freedom on Pesach is not a physical freedom. You'll come to the Seder and yes, you'll be tired. And yes, you might be cranky from the fact that the kids, after you've cleaned the house 3 times, your little one ran up with a biscuit and breckled it all over upstairs and you have to start all over again. It is hard. But the freedom you can feel on Pesach is a different freedom. It's the freedom of Klal Yisrael having received this great gift of Pesach, the great gift of Emunah, the great gift of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, becoming our God, choosing us as a nation, and knowing that whatever happens to us is in Hashem's hands anyway. And the highlight, so the pinnacle, to me, very often, the pinnacle of the Seder is you get to Hallel, and then you get to Nishmas. Nishmas kol chai devar shimcha Hashem Elokeinu. The neshama of every single person gives you blessings, Hashem. Right? If our mouth is full of song, and our tongues and our lips and our eyes and our hands and our legs, if we did it, we cannot get anywhere near to give you a thanks for achas me'olef elef alfei alofim. A tiny, tiny percentage of the tiny little things that we do, that you do for us. We're so blessed. When you come to the end of the Seder and you feel blessed, there's a feeling of freedom there. I'm blessed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us so much. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is constantly doing for us in the big things and the little things. Hi, Tali. Sorry, my sister just wrote something. I felt I had to comment. At least for my sister, I have to comment. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us all that. And then you can feel a sense of cherus, because you can feel Hashem is really in charge. Hashem is running everything. And what's there to be worried about? Because He knows better than I do, and He's running everything anyway. He's like the pilot, so just let the pilot fly the plane and just sit back and enjoy the ride. Do whatever you need to do, but the pilot's flying the plane anywhere. And that's the feeling of cherus on Pesach. When you get that emunah, when you get that feeling of believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then can translate that belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu into a feeling of cherus, into a feeling of freedom. You might feel tired when you're sitting on your chair, but you'll also feel elated. You'll also feel free. You'll also feel within yourself that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has taken us out of Egypt. There's a certain freedom. Hashem, there's almost anything that I can do now, because you're in charge, and I leave it up to your hands. And yes, it's been a very, very tiring and demanding month. But it's been worth it, because that feeling trumps everything else. And that's the feeling of emunah, and that's the feeling of cherus that we need to get on Pesach. And if we can focus in and we can try to get to that feeling of cherus, then you'll feel a very, very different person this year, Pesach. Maybe tired, but still you feel a lot better about everything. You'll feel a different yontif. You'll feel this yontif will be a yontif where I feel truly free. And I just want to mention a few halachas and then give anybody a chance to ask any questions. I was asked just to say a few halachas. If anybody does want to ask questions, again, as I said, you can ask. I'll start with the following, and I feel this very strongly, and people make the mistake very often, and that is, they make the mistake of thinking that dirt is chametz. Dirt is not chametz. They're two different things. Chametz is chametz, dirt is dirt. And so what is meant to be a task of Pesach cleaning turns into a task of spring cleaning. And I've had people say, yeah, but if I don't do the spring cleaning now, it'll never happen. The truth is, if you want to be organized, and I don't have to tell women how to be organized, women know how to organize much, much better than any guy can. If you want to be organized, you'll find a way of being organized even after Pesach. You'll find a way of being able to clean the things. I'll never go through my kids' clothes. Put it in your diary. On Wednesday, so-and-so, I'm going through this kid's clothes. The next day, I'm going through somebody else's clothes. You can do it. It is possible. But people say they start getting busy with their net curtains, and they start getting rid of all the toys that don't have all the pieces anymore. So how long does it take out? You take out every puzzle and you start counting all the pieces and putting them back. This one, that takes ages. So you're going through all of these things, and it takes ages to do these things. You're taking curtains to the dry cleaners. Where exactly is the chometz in your curtains? There's no chometz in your curtains, and even if they got chometz into your curtains, okay, so they got a bit of chometz. There'll be a stain on your curtain, but it's not chometz. It's not edible. Nobody sits there eating their curtains. So you need to clean, but you need to look for the real chometz. And people get so bogged down on the extras that by the time it comes sometimes to the real chometz and looking for it, you're too tired for it. So what you're looking for you're looking for definitely chometz, pieces of chometz that are bigger than a kezayis, or even anything smaller than a kezayis that is edible. So you look around your entire house, you hoover, you mop, you sweep, move the couches, move around the things in the kitchen, unless you're closing your kitchen for Pesach. But even if you have a Pesach kitchen, most people will still use their regular kitchen. Kashering I won't discuss, because we'll leave that up to your husbands. Let your husbands do the kashering. Don't do it yourself. At least let them do something, right? They have to do. They're not cleaning the whole house. Like give them one job, right? At least give them the job of kashering the kitchen. It's a difficult job, and tell them not to make a big mess. Tell them to find out how to do it, and not to swamp the entire place. The people that start pouring hot water all over the place. There's hot water. They've ruined laminate floors, and they've ruined your cupboards, ruined your cabinets. There's no need to pour water all over the place. Do it right, and make sure you get it done. Okay? But go through everything. Go through the kids' clothes. Kids are masters at hiding chometz. Your kids' rooms need to be gone through really, really thoroughly if you have little kids that start having chometz. Whether they get the stuff that they got from Purim. All my kids are like, I'm not putting it in the main cupboard because everybody's going to take my things. So every kid took their stuff upstairs to their room and hiding it in their little corner, and they forgot they had one more encore left that they didn't realize that they put into the bottom of the bed somewhere in a drawer underneath their bed and totally forgotten about. In the meantime, there's a real piece of chometz there. So your kids' bedrooms need to be gone through properly. You need to go through the clothing, you need to go through the bedroom, underneath the beds, around the desks, drawers, whatever else there is. Pockets, your husband's pockets, people go to bris and they go to Shalom Zochas, maybe sometimes they take things home. A bris, you go to Bar Mitzvah, you want to bring something home for your wife, you stick it in, you have a little roll, you bought yourself a cake, you put it in your pocket, you forget about it. You got to make sure that they're not, you got to make sure you go through those pockets. At least the things that you're going to be using over Yom Tov. If you have too many clothes and you can't go through everything, then if you say, all these clothes I'm not going to be using for Yom Tov, okay, I'm selling the chometz and I'm selling everything that might be in there, that's also okay. But the clothes that you're going to use over Yom Tov, especially if they're pockets, make sure that there's no chometz in those pockets. Cleaning, obviously you know how to clean the kitchens, they know how to go ahead and they know how to... hopefully they know how to cash the kitchen. Different parts of the kitchen need cashing in different ways. Different Rabbanim will give you different answers. Ask your shayla to your LOR, local Orthodox Rabbi. They'll tell you what to do, how to kasher. Sfarim. I always say that it's not really possible to clean Sfarim. If you've been sitting and eating over your Sfarim, you will have crumbs in there, and it's almost impossible. Go try to figure out. People that turn page to page and they go through and they try to get everything out of the binding. You'll never get the chometz out of the binding anyway. So if you have Sfarim, if you're the type of person, if your husband's the type of person that eats over Sfarim, then you don't need, what's inside the Sfarim is bottle anyway, it's nothing. Just make sure then you don't take those Sfarim onto the table. Once you take them to the table, now you're risking already a crumb coming from that sefer and falling into your food. That might be more problematic. That you have to be careful. Don't do that. But in general, you don't need to go crazy about Sfarim. Don't say, this is only a small part of the library. There's probably more in there, right? You're going to go through every single sefer, every single page. Yeah, it doesn't work. You know, he can come and you try and make the excuse, but it doesn't work. You know, and you're not going to clean it anyway. It doesn't. There's no point in doing that. Okay. Other than that, again, if you're putting all your stuff away, make sure the places that you're going to put your chametz away are closed. They're locked because they have to be locked in a certain way. Because otherwise, you're so used to going into these cupboards and taking out the things, you won't remember. So put on some sort of a lock. Put something on there saying sold to a guy. And I think Rav Shaya spoke to me yesterday. I gave him a shtar that they're going to be using. So they should be bringing home chametz forms soon. They should be signing the chametz forms. You sign the chametz, they'll sell the chametz with Dan Kraus, who sells it as a bezdin. That's all done properly. Just make sure wherever your chametz is labeled and is closed so that you know, and make sure that not only is it closed that you can't open it, make sure it's closed that your kids can't open it as well, because kids are very, very clever and very inventive about how they get into things. Other than that, these are the main things that you need to do for cleaning for Pesach. Beyond that, you know, you might have liquors you need to put away because you'll sell those. But in general, beyond that, there's not that much more you need to do. You start cleaning your kitchen furniture, you start cleaning in the chairs, start, cleaning on the couches, whatever else you're going to do. But it shouldn't be as stressful as it has become. But if there's if there's anybody that would like to ask a specific question, I'd like to give you a chance to also ask a specific question. Or if anybody would like to type a question over there, if I read it, if I get a chance to answer that one, I'll try to answer that one as well. Anybody... Anything specific you'd like to ask on the halachas or on the cleaning of Pesach they've been struggling with over the years? No? It seems everybody knows how to do it anyway. See? Okay. Going once.
What about chametz that you can see but is not accessible?
Right, what do you mean?
So my fridge is freestanding.
Right.
I can't get to the crumbs that are falling down the side.
Right.
I can see them. If I pull out the machine,
right,
I can clean them.
Yeah.
And I was told that I don't have to pull out the machine, but I can see the crumbs.
Right. I would say, how easy is it to pull out the machine?
Very easy. I
would say pull out the machine and clean that. I have found again and again when I move my fridge, I am just surprised how much chametz. It is shocking how much chametz ends up behind our fridges. I remember, I think the first year we had when we did Pesach, we were in Israel, and we had a freestanding oven that wasn't built in. I was like, should we move the oven? All right, we moved the oven. I moved the oven. There was pasta, there was bisli, there was chir. You cannot imagine. There was kazesim and kazesim of chametz over there. There's so much stuff over there, and some of it is actually edible chametz. You might still be able to, it's definitely, it might be a little dirty, but you might be able to move off the dust. It's definitely edible by a dog, and if you get a yeshiva bacher, you might be able to eat some of that as well. So, yeah. So I would say if you can see it and you see real chametz, you move it out, sweep underneath, and just put it back. I would say it's a safer bet, because there is very often there's not only crumbs there, but there's real chametz there, pieces that might be the size of a kazayas, and you gotta be careful because there's real chametz and it's very easy to move. So you can't really be samech on the kula of just it's behind something heavy. It's not really that heavy. If it's behind, let's say those. That big closet, I'd say that you wouldn't have to move. That's big enough. Yes, you see that big closet behind you, or this svarim shrine. That's already big, that you don't have to move. But a fridge that moves very easily, that's freestanding, move it. Usually have roll that you just, especially if laminate, it goes straight across, you sweep, you put it back, and you're done. It's not but yes, you should move it, I think. If you can't get to it, then you're mevatel, and that's it. Pardon?
You can see it.
How can you get? Can you get beyond it?
No.
Can you use your hand to get in there? Could you, pardon? No. So if it's behind something really heavy that cannot be moved, and you can't...
a drawer of a freezer.
Right.
So it's like clear.
Right.
And you can't dismantle.
Can you not dismantle the freezer to get it out, to get the piece
of... the drawer out.
Yes.
It's like in the pieces of the drawer.
So people start playing around.
It doesn't come apart. I tried.
You tried, yeah? People try, yeah, everybody tries everything. You try with toothpicks, they try all the different... Like you do the best that you can, and then if you still see chametz over there, what I would say is then just spray it with some kind of a Windex or something to make it not royal achilas kelev, and then you put your thing back. You clean as best as you... Pardon? You don't need to cover it, because you're not going to go in there anyway. If you can't get it out with a toothpick, and you can't get it out by cleaning it, you're not going to be able to pull it out either. And now that you've taken it and you've sprayed it with something that's made it inedible, so then you don't have to cover it anymore. But then take it out, spray it, make sure you've cleaned it well, and do the best that you can. And beyond that, you don't have to do. You don't have to start getting an industrial cleaner, starting to unscrew all the bits and pieces of your freezer. It's almost impossible to get into everything. Whatever you can do, you do. The rest of it, you spray something on it to make sure that whatever little bit remains becomes inedible, and then the rest of it gets sold. That's already getting sold, and that's not considered chametz anymore. It's not edible. Yes, please.
I put my Shabbos candles on the table during the year, so could I do that on Pesach? It's just used on the table with chametz.
Yeah, so Dan Westham, I think wrote in his, I once asked him about it, and he wrote in his Sefer, also he's got a Sefer on, he says that you could just wash them off really well, clean them off really well, and then you can use the same leichters. It might be better maybe on Pesach not to actually have them standing on the table, just to ensure that if a little bit of chametz got onto it, it doesn't go into your food. But yes, you can use, if you've taken your candles and you've cleaned them really well, you can use those for Yom Tov. Maybe just don't keep them on the table. Anybody else? Any other questions?
Cupboards that you are going to be selling.
Yes.
That you're not going to be using in the kitchen.
You don't need to clean. No, you don't need to clean. That's people like to clean it at all. You're selling, right?
The same way as you're selling the chametz on the dishes, you're selling the chametz in the kitchen.
Yeah, you're selling chametz. Everything you're selling it all. It's done. Finished. Whatever you're selling, whatever's being closed, you don't have to clean, right? So you don't. I mean, you can clean it if you want to, but there's no point. There's no real point in cleaning it, because if you're selling these cupboards and you're going to have chametz in them anyway, what's the point of cleaning them from all the chametz if they're going to have chametz in them anyway afterwards? You clean it out and then you put chametz in it, so you've gone back to the same thing. You're back to where you started from. So you don't really have to clean them. Make sure that the outside is clean, that no chametz can fall off of them onto anywhere in your kitchen. But if you have a cupboard inside the kitchen, for example, that you're going to close, the inside of the cupboard you don't have to clean, as long as it's clean on the outside, and no chametz can drop off from there onto any food that you have. Anybody else? Anything else? Yes? No?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
About the share, not about.
Okay. Yeah, please.
Just at the beginning, when you said, like that feeling of freedom, sitting around the Seder.
Yes.
And we've put in all the work.
Yes.
And we've sort of gone against all, we've put in the effort, basically.
Yes.
When we wouldn't necessarily have wanted to.
Right.
So doesn't that sort of condemn people who are going away for Pesach? Like, they're not going to feel that same feeling of freedom because they didn't.
Okay.
All that effort of cleaning.
Okay. Last year, I went away for Pesach the first time. Somebody took us away for Pesach. It's not something that, on a rabbi's salary, we never go away anywhere. Forget about going anything. But we went away for Pesach last year because somebody took us away for Pesach. And, well, okay, it's not really true because we had to clean the house also. We had the worst or the best of both worlds, whatever. We had to come back for the second day because the shul only gave us half a Yom Tov. So we had to clean the entire house. We went away for this time and then we were back again. So it didn't really work. But it wasn't the same. I know what you mean. It's not. You don't have that same feeling of freedom or of accomplishment of having cleaned your entire house. They might turn around and say, I got a better... Ben likes your question. Well done, Ben. I've said that you like the question. Yeah. So, yeah, that feeling... Bias. Okay, I know it's bias, but whatever. Yeah, they might not get the same. I mean, they might feel freedom in a different way. I spoke about it then when I spoke at the hotel last year. So I spoke about trying to feel a different freedom here, and so you have a freedom over there to maybe start working on Sfiras HaOmer and getting yourself ready for Matan Torah. That is a different feeling. Everybody can try to plug into their personal situation and their personal freedom in the way that they want to. But it's better to try to plug into that and try to make the most, whatever your situation is going to be. Whether you're going away, it doesn't have to be to a hotel. You might be going to your parents for Yom Tov, and it means you don't have to clean up the whole house for Yom Tov either. So you've not gone to a hotel, but you're still getting to your parents, and everything's going to be done for you and served to you on a platter. It's the same thing. However, then you have to work maybe on the other freedoms that we mentioned, of feeling the emunah. Maybe you don't have that first set of freedom, but you can still work on the other freedoms that come with the fact that maybe you didn't have to work for it, but you can still put yourself into the mindset of the Rebbeinu Shalom running the world and feeling the freedom that way. If that makes sense. Okay. Anything else? Yes? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Wishing you all a kosher and Pesach. Thank you.
Thank you.